All right, this is One Last Midnight. Welcome back to another episode of Astroneer. So again, last Friday, Joe and the System Era team did a deep dive into the design process of game development. And of course, there was a ton of leaks about upcoming stuff. So as always, let me go ahead and give you the highlights of that live stream video. Now, the first person up is Dre, and he's the design lead at System Era, and he describes his job as...
is to think of it as like a shepherd of awesome ideas.
And so idea conflict resolution might look a little something like this. And mainly they were talking about the concept of automation and how automation is getting into the game of Astroneer. And that automation has really been something that the team has been thinking about since the very beginning of the game, how to introduce automation in. It is one of the most requested features for Astroneer. And they talked about the design process. You know, what does that look like? So, you know, it starts with an idea, and then it moves into a prototype, and then it moves into some mock-ups, and then into play test, and possibly then at that point redesign and possibly introduction into the game. Now, where are they currently at with automation? So it was said in the video that all the plans have been laid out, and now they're in the part of execution. So they're implementing these concepts into the game. And we're going to see the first part of automation come in June. Now, the question was asked, where do they see automation fitting into the game? And Dre's response was, he feels that it's like beginning game, early game process, but then scaling up the end game. It's really wherever you want to put automation in. You don't have to use any of the automation features, but I think they're going to be incredibly helpful in managing resources and creating items. And so, they see that process as being a beginning game process and then all the way scaling up into the end game process. There was some talk about power consumption and how much power these items will take. And, they're going to consume power, just like, Smelter or ChemLab or any of the other base building pieces consume power. So the more that you put down, the more power you're going to have to be able to run your system. So you're going to have to scale your power to whatever your automation idea is. You're going to have to support that somehow. There's a question also about, what items does the team think will be greatly benefited by automation?
And it functions as things that you can do as a production line optimization in terms of like efficiency and capacity. But like, there's also just tons of creative things you can do, as far as whatever you want to make or how you want to stack up the different items in Astroneer.
But the important thing is that it works in the existing pipeline. Somebody had posed the question of, are there some concepts that you're really excited about? This was to Joe and this was to Dre. And this was the response.
I'll put it this way. I mean, the team has been awesome at generating ideas for more stuff that we can do. One of our big challenges has been sort of scaling our ambition to, what we can do in, the upcoming updates and kind of like how that stages out. Mm-hmm. I think that, there's, yeah, I mean, I won't give anything away, but I mean, in terms of, things that we're excited about. There's definitely no shortage of ideas, but there's certainly stuff that really is resonating with the team, both on the production line side and on the creativity side.
Yes, one of those is coming hopefully right afterwards.
Yeah.
That I'm really
We've
excited
got some
for.
pretty cool follow-ups that we're planning on. Yeah.
Yes.
So automation will be expanded upon. It's going to make an introduction sometime in June. And then after that, there will be more automation that is added into the game. And this is really going to change how players interact with the current game loop. It's going to change the concept of how you're making your bases. Possibly. I mean, if you don't want to do automation, fine. But if you do, your concept of base building and your concept of resource gathering and management is completely going to change. There's some thought around the research catalog and the printers and the UI behind that. They're not going to give us a list of items to select from, but they're going to have to rethink how we get to those items because those are starting to get large, and I have a feeling they're going to get larger. So there's already some thought going into how you're going to interact with these existing items in the future. Automation will work in the base game and in creative mode, just in case anybody was worried about it not being in the base game. It will definitely be in the base game. And automation as a whole will have many concepts that work together. So think of it as, there was a part in the video in which Joe was talking about that they have evaluated many different video games that had automation in them. He said Minecraft, he said Satisfactory, Factorio. There was a couple other that he listed off. And they're kind of taking some ideas and trying to figure out how to make those work inside of Astroneer. So when you're thinking automation, even though we're going to get it piecemeal, I think at the end we're going to have this full, complete package of automation that we're going to be able to do a lot of really interesting concepts with. Now, there was a little talk about storage.
Oh, in terms of
storage,
yeah,
storage being a thing.
Right.
Storage is definitely a thing.
It's definitely a thing.
Definitely a thing to think about.
Definitely a thing to think about.
So it seems to me that there's going to be some sort of change in storage here in the future. And it actually, in the next part, when they're talking to Ant, they kind of leaked a little something about storage. And I don't know if that's directly related into what he's talking about, or if he's talking about, remember, past items that they showed with some new vertical storage. So it could be possibly that as well. The conversation made a turn. Dre left and Ant came on, and Ant is part of the design team, and he's been working on automation, and specifically this automation arm. So Ant had worked on this initial prototype of the automation arm, and they showed some interesting video on it. And one of the really cool concepts of this prototype video is they've got this idea of input areas. So there's some thoughts that come out of this input zone, at least to me there is, and that's being able to pick up from vehicles, or being able to pick up from existing storage clusters, and several other really crazy ideas that you could possibly come up with. They moved on to the second prototype that Ant had created, and in there's a kind of a little leaky concept. So you said storage was a thing, which I said back. And there's a little video of them giggling about it. And so there's this purple thing down there that you can see that the arm is moving graphite into this little purple storage, this container that is very similar to the soil container right now. So I don't know if this is what they're proposing, but it looks like that there is a way to be able to take those resources and put them into some sort of larger container. And that makes a lot of sense, because the game gets laggy when you start, creating a ton of items, and it just can't handle it. So there has to be some other way to be able to store items instead of having, 100,000 of these resources laying around your base. It's just not going to work for the game. And then finally, one of the last videos that they showed with Ant is kind of almost the automation arm in its current state. It's working on getting this automation arm into the game. And so this is kind of where they're at. And one of the really interesting features that they added to this arm is this concept of a filter. So if you notice that there's a little round circle in front of the arm, that is technically a filter. So if you put a resource there, that's the only resource that the arm is going to pay attention to. Yeah, I absolutely love that concept. That's one of the features that I've been wanting for a really long time. And I'd love to see that applied to other things as well, like storage in particular, stuff that's coming off the soil centrifuge. But ultimately, you can take one of these automation arms and then build some sort of filtration system where it moves canisters and moves the resource off of the soil centrifuge and puts it in its appropriate place. I've always hated the fact that I would produce an item on the soil centrifuge and then also have the canisters go onto that same storage as well. But they talked about the resource extractor and what the resource extractor is going to be doing, and it's going to be extracting resources. Now, they didn't get any more specific than that. Like, how deep does it go? Does it have to be on one specific pile, or does it look in a, you know, some sort of radius? Does it go like super deep and it just pulls all resources out? I mean, do you put one down and it just mines the entire planet? I have no idea what the functionality of the resource extractor is going to be, but we definitely know from this live stream that it is a resource extractor and it's going to be pulling items out of the ground. The next part that Joe showed off was the drone, and that is coming this month. And talking about when the update is coming out, it's not going to come out this week. It is going to come out the following week, which is the week of the 18th, somewhere in that time frame, if nothing goes wrong. There was some really cool video that was shown about the drone and it flying around and being able to move the drone. And then also, and in that same demonstration was this showing that you can actually do some stuff. At least you could deform the terrain while you have the drone flying and, you know, essentially changing your camera perspective to your Astroneer. Now, this whole drone concept just, I mean, it's fantastic for me. I mean, I make videos about Astroneer and other video games, but having the ability to be able to fly the camera around really kind of opens up what you can do with Astroneer. In the sense of story making, you know, or in the sense of showing off, you know, a couple people working on a particular project or something, or a base build or something like that. So I'm really excited about the camera, the drone camera, and getting a new perspective on the camera. Unfortunately, currently right now, the camera is only slotted for creative mode. That doesn't mean it will never come to the survival mode or the adventure mode. It's not slotted for that mode right now. A bunch of questions came out about the drone demonstration, and some of them are, you know, can you drive with the drone out? No, you can't drive with the drone out. You can't remote view somebody else's camera. And I asked that question because I was thinking about, if you're on a server, I want to be able to see what my buddies are doing. It won't clip through the ground, so you can't see what's underground, which, you know, that kind of makes sense. You can take pictures with the drone, but only with the in-game camera. There's no other additional picture overlay. So if you have the Wanderer suit, you have that emote that can, you know, take a picture, snap a shot, and you get that little interface that comes up, or even that little standalone camera where you can take a picture. That's the kind of pictures that they're talking about it taking inside of Astroneer. You can't fly drones off to another planet. That was a question that was asked. The drone has the height limit of the sky, so essentially the same height limit as the jetpack does. So that was it. That was the breakdown of this last Friday's live stream, and you know, it's really exciting, the stuff that's coming out from Astroneer. I love the future of Astroneer so far. This whole concept of automation is really going to blow the doors back on the game, and then, you know, they're not really talking about any kind of new items that'll be coming out. I mean, but the automation in and of itself is great. There's got to be more stuff to do with these resources, though. So I'm wondering when that is coming. And there's been no word of that, no talk of that. You know, it'd be great if they do start mentioning that, because what do you do with all this stuff? So you put automation into the game. You have an ability to pull a bunch of resources out of the ground. I have a way to automate my chem lab, and I have ability to make those secondary resources from the chem lab. Now, what do I do with it? So I've got it stockpiled. I'm not going to make 1 million RTGs. I'm not going to make, you know, 1 million whatever. There's got to be more stuff. I would love System Era to acknowledge this and come up with some sort of, you know, information for us to let us know that hey, look, there is going to be more base building pieces coming. There are going to be more things that you can do with these resources. To me personally, they've got one of two ways they can go. They either make the recipes for the existing items significantly more difficult so that it takes more resources to build them, or you give us more items to build. Because I don't see any other way that we can use these resources. But, you know, hey, let me know in the comments what you think what these resources are going to be used for. Okay, so that was it for me. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, think about joining our community. We have a great community of people here. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, you can find the links in the description below, and make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you know when I go live and when I post new videos. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.